Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the vlog. Hey, Mark Holovitz here, and we're going to talk about a real near and dear topic. Of course, we're always talking about cars that light our fire. Why? Because ultimately, life is too short to drive boring cars. As we say right there, that's pretty obvious. And if we're car people, I'm sure you guys are car people, things like this are annoying. Nobody needs nails on the road. I don't know why people throw garbage around like that. But at the end of the day, we all love cars that are fun. And the real question is, are these Jaguar F Types good used cars? Is this the time, in fact, to buy a used Jaguar? Well, I've got a few answers to that. For people that are maybe starting to consider getting into a used Jaguar, I mean, we know what they cost new. I mean, you can get upward of $130,000, $140,000 Canadian, or well over $100K in the US market to get into a brand new F Type R like we have right here. That's pretty obvious. You know what you're signing up for. But the question is, do you want to buy a used Jaguar? Is this a good time to do it? And is the risks, or are the risks essentially worth it? I mean, let's talk about some of the things that, clearly I have some insight. Now I've made some videos about, the average cost of maintenance, the repairs I've had along the way. And I'm not going to dive into that, because if you want to see more of that, wait to the end of the video and I will lead you to one of the videos where I talk about some of the key areas and issues with the F Type. But we're not talking about that today. What we are talking about is a compelling conversation of whether you should actually buy yourself a used F Type. Is this the time? Is this in fact the time to get them while they're hot? Well, let's get into this. And really, let's start by saying, should you even buy a used Jaguar? Well, an F Type, clearly it's a car that has a reputation for reliability issues. I speak of that in a lot of my videos. I've now had the car for a little over three and a half years. The car's 5 years old now because it's a 2018 model year. And I think I'm in a pretty good place to speak. I know what the history is on this car. It's got about 62,000 kilometers. And we know some of the ins and outs. I know a lot of people that have these cars. I also in part of many forums, and I see some of the typical failure modes. So as a whole, I would say these cars are actually relatively reliable. From my perspective, I've had a reasonable experience, and knocking on all kinds of hardwood there. It's a piece of oak, but it's been actually fairly reasonable. So reliability is better on an F Type, honestly, than probably a lot of other Euro cars. Certainly no worse than if you're driving alongside a BMW M5 or an Audi S5. Those cars are no better or worse than this. So if you're worried about the reliability aspect, worried no more. While it's not Honda Civic territory, it also, it covers off a lot of bases for the passion, for the drive, which is what we really talk about here. So from a reliability standpoint, I can honestly tell you 60,000 kilometers in, 5 years of age, the car is actually holding up very, very well from a reliability standpoint. It doesn't wear supremely quickly. And if I can add, that 5-liter V8 that's in the supercharged car right here, we're talking the 550 horsepower version, it's been around a long time. They use it in many other models, not just Jaguar as well, Land Rover, Range Rover products. And it's been one of those staples. It's been a solid engine. Yeah, there's been a few little things you have to look at, Y pipes for coolant, maybe the odd injector, but for the most part, it's a pretty robust engine. So from a reliability standpoint, I gotta say that the F Type isn't really all that bad. No worse than you'd expect from any kind of German import vehicle. Definitely, as I'd have to say. Now, what about cost of maintenance? Because I know a lot of you guys probably worry about, well, if I get into one of these now and it's 6 or 7 years old, should I buy a used F Type? Because I think cost of maintenance will break the bank. Well, first of all, I have to say, and I've seen another viewer, actually another YouTuber, come across this very conversation. I actually prefer, if I can say that, at least in the Edmonton area, prefer to go to the dealer. We don't have a lot of independent shops in the Edmonton area, so it's not like I have a ton of choices anyway. And a lot of people say go to the independent shops, will save you a lot of money. And yes, if you have an amazing independent mechanic that knows these cars intimately, great, absolutely. I'd say go with that, because if you know that person, you have trust and faith, and they've never done you wrong, go with that. I don't want to steer you away from that, but I've had a pretty good overall warm and fuzzy, if you will, from going the dealer route. I mean, you talk about recalls, you can deal with typical maintenance issues. They have access to all the parts that might be harder to come by. It might save you a lot of legwork chasing down parts, because that's a big part of owning these, because these are British, or Tata Motors, maybe not totally British, but British for all intents and purposes. What you'll find is getting parts could be tricky. I know even the dealer had to wait almost a week to get a replacement SIM card. So that tells me that it's hard to get parts. And do you want to be that person that's chasing around, making all these phone calls, checking all over the countryside? A lot of independent shops too also don't necessarily have the network that that the actual factory shop has. So for me, I just go to the dealer for the time being anyway. Basic servicing, 100%. And thanks everyone for giving me some pointers on previous videos, because I think there are certain things, once you buy these used, you have to think about doing maintenance yourself in some way to save some cash and convenience. And plus, when you're in there, it does give you the warm and fuzzy. And I know a lot of you guys have mentioned that, you know, just buying yourself a pump, and you can pump the oil out of the top, which is all the dealer does anyhow, is a great way to just not just learn about your car and more about it and the details. You're able to get in there, clean it, and know that the job was done well and done by you, not some second-year apprentice.
So a little bit of maintenance goes a long way with these cars. We know that I'll be doing a set of tires on these pretty quickly, and we can probably speak that those are going to be probably about $2,000 for a set of skins all the way around. We know the brakes still have some wear and tear on them, but when it comes time to do the brakes, we're probably going to either tackle them myself, or maybe even if I have to pay the piper and I don't want to tackle that type of maintenance, then I'll probably wind up having to pay a couple grand to get the brakes done all the way around. But I mean, those are few and far between. For the most part, other than unexpected breakdowns, I'm only averaging anywhere from about $700, $600 up to about $1,500 per service per year. Probably $1,000, $800 roughly is closer to what I'm paying in a year up here in Canada, of course. And that's getting me oil services, fluid changes, filters, those types of things. How they average them out when you talk about, you know, because some years are more, some years are less, just because it depends where you fall in the cycles and the criteria and the mileage. But basically, you're talking $1,000 a year to keep this thing on the road, plus a little bit of extra tires and brakes along the way. Might average out to $1,200, $1,500 per year over a 5 or 10 year time frame if you have no major breakdowns. So from a maintenance standpoint, is it good to buy a used Jaguar? I personally think it is. It's relatively reasonably priced for maintenance. Surprisingly, it's not up there with the Aston Martins and those types of cars. It's actually more grounded, like you expect from buying a mid-level Audi, for example, for maintenance. So it's reasonable. But what isn't reasonable for sure is considering buying, for example, a base 3 Series BMW brand new, when you think you get into a brand new BMW 330, which is a good car. I mean, we talk about those. I talk about it over on Exotic Car Play Place. If you want a good, you know, sturdy, steady Eddie, luxury Euro wagon, sure, get yourself a 330. I think about the money it costs you to get into a 330. You're talking here in Canada, you know, you're about $50,000. So I think, well, wait a minute, for 50 grand, I can step into one of these. Maybe not an R's as much. The R's are a little bit more. I'm finding the R's on the used market right now in Canada here are probably closer to, you know, that $70,000 range and up. 60 to 70 was kind of the bottom barrel for an R, but you could still get into V6s and the 4 cylinders, and you can do all of that for similar money as a 330 BMW. If you're looking at buying a used one of these, definitely as opposed to maybe a brand new other, you know, alternative in the similar price range, there's no comparison what you're getting from a BMW, Audi, Benz compared to this. Even if you're getting, you know, say a 4-cylinder is still twice the car, the Mercedes C300 or possibly even the Audi, you know, A4s and A3s of the world. Those are up in that 40 to 50K range. So you can get yourself an entry-level car like this with the 4-banger and maybe even the V6s for similar money. So makes me basically reconsider, why would you even bother buying those other cars?
I know it's warranty. A lot of people, they love the peace of mind, they love the warranty, they just love being able to, you know, turn the key, not worry if something breaks, that they can scoot it on down to the dealer. But you know, I'll be honest, I kind of got taken for a ride here. I also bought a CPO extended warranty. And that warranty, when that warranty comes and goes, I don't put a ton of miles on the car. And be honest, after about three years, I think I added 3 years to this, comes and goes. And if you're not using the warranty, it's sure nice peace of mind, absolutely. But the reality is probably 90% of the people and time that have warranty tied to their car, they rarely use it. In no significant matter anyway. Sure, you drop it off, they fix some little knickknack, but rarely are you finding cars that actually have to go in, get a full new engine, a new transmission, or something major that it actually you really feel good about the fact that you had warranty. So it's a gamble. So with that gamble, if you have a higher risk tolerance like I do typically, then I see it's not even a debate buying a car like this over a brand new, say, again, Mercedes C443, the AMG version, step up of the C-Class, is similar money as probably this car. That's a no-brainer. I went into the dealer the other day, Mercedes, and they had a brand new what the heck was it now? It was a CLA, but it was a newer version. It had a matte paint. It had the newer they now have those great screens, of course, on these new Mercedes. They have the wider screens. It's all digital, that. But it was pimped out. It had all the parts and pieces and the add-ons. That car was almost 70 grand. It was like $67,000 from what I remember for a CLA, guys. That's ridiculous. F Type R or clapped out Mercedes CLA, which uses a French engine and all of under 300 ponies. So I have to think to myself, is a no-brainer to me. So yes, is this the time? Only if you're shopping for a car and you want to have fun. Yeah, this is the time. The other part is the timing aspect. So we talk about that. Yeah, I bought my car just before the last 2 years of, where everybody getting locked down and all that stuff going on. I don't want to say it because I'll probably be demonetized, so I'm not even going to say it. But we all know the last couple of years where car prices have flopped. So we went into that time crisis in 2020 and then 21, we came out of it. Car prices got jacked. Car dealers were ripping people off. But I bought this car just before, so I bought it in the spring of 20. And with that said, I bought this car for 70 grand. I know I've said that before. 70 grand, it was $133,000 brand new. It was literally just over half of its original value retained. That's all there was left. So the timing was awesome. So here I had a 2-year-old Jaguar F Type, 2 years old. I can't remember what the Ks were. They were fairly low. I think it had 35,000 kilometers on it or something. So decent Ks on it when I bought it. And like I said, I bought it just before the big crisis, and then I paid just about half of what it was new. Now, of course, since all that changed the last couple of years, things have been changing. Prices have skyrocketed. So if you're looking at buying a car, say 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, that wouldn't have been necessarily the best time because you would have been paying more than you've ever paid for a used F-Type. But now the tables have turned. I've noticed if you watch the market now, prices are starting to, we're hitting that cap right there. So now this becomes a very, very compelling conversation. Why would you go out and buy some of these new elevated, escalated, jacked up prices for what I would personally consider a very low level luxury vehicle like a CLA or even BMW has their lower level stuff like the Grand Coupe, the 2 Series Grand Coupe. Yikes. That's entry level front wheel drive. Like that is not a car that is clearly worth half of what a nicely sorted and clean and well maintained F Type. So is this the time to buy it? Yes. In fact, if I can summarize, the prices on these, people still don't realize the value that you're getting with an F Type because of the reputation hurts them, because of there's a little bit of escalated maintenance prices and parts and all that, like I just mentioned, but there's that piece, that part of that conversation that people just they just put these cars behind them. They think it's just too much, right? It's just too much maintenance and hassle, and I don't want that level of reliability or lack thereof. So I go buy something new or something different. So that's perfect. Let those guys go out there, buy that Lexus IS 300. Let those folks go out there and buy those cars because, different strokes for different folks. And I mean, I'm not saying those are bad choices because those are both great cars in their own right. Absolutely. I would definitely recommend a 330 for the right person looking for that type of car. And I would definitely consider a Lexus because they're super reliable. So it just depends on the personality. But if you're looking for this, there is never a better time. With all of its competition jacked up, escalating, walk into a dealership. Just go, I dare you, just go take a look, walk into a Mercedes or a BMW dealership today and see what the prices are. I think you'll be shocked. I mean, if you haven't looked for a while, I think what you'll find is prices that you once thought were normal no longer exist. For new car prices, they're now up here. Just like everything, a loaf of bread or, you know, a jug of, container of butter or milk or, you know, any of that, everything's escalated. Now car prices are too. But interestingly enough, a lot of the F-types have sort of resisted that escalation. So is this the right time? Yes. And to compound that, because we're at a place where it's still, these prices are still kind of slumped, people don't realize it. The fact that we're rolling in 2 years or in about a year and a half, we're going to be rolling pure EV. You will no longer find any of these around. If you ever wanted to have a car that looks this good or this interesting or this dynamic or has that type of personality, you won't have this opportunity in 2.5, 3 years from now. So if you think you want to save up, just be careful with that because yeah, these cars will be out there, but there will be less and less and less and less and less of them. So this is a decent time as we're finding the prices dropping off on these prices, on these cars, because people still don't realize their value. And the fact that they're diminishing, they're disappearing, this represents a great opportunity. And probably if you didn't get one before that last 2 years of chaos and corruption and lockdowns, if you're looking at the right time to buy it, the right time to buy it was just before and probably starting now, maybe even leading in another 6 months as we see car prices further slump. I would actually anticipate going into the fall of this year is when we're really going to start to feel the burn on used car prices as the market starts to fatten up with other inventory, and then cars like this will start to fall off even more. So I would expect by the fall is when you really want to start be looking at these. But again, there's never been a better time. The F-Type is clearly the car for real driving enthusiasts, people who appreciate a rolling piece of art and clearly want to have a touch of the past, because as we roll into this whole electric vehicle future, things are changing and they're changing very quickly. So I really do appreciate you guys' time. It's a very compelling conversation, but this is a deadly time. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Have you recently bought one? Do you think maybe that this is the best time? Or you've got a Jag and F-Type on the radar yourself? Well, I'd love to hear it. I know a lot of you guys are reaching out to me and dropping those notes and saying, yeah, I've got one on order. I just saw one of you guys out there had reached out and said that you have a brand new, the 75 edition coming, matte black. Oh, that sounds absolutely mesmerizing. So congrats on that one. And anybody else looking at these, clearly you guys see the light as I have. You don't see it until you drive it and experience it, but I have. So love to hear your comment section below. Don't forget as well to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build this channel. We're trying to hustle. Honestly, I can't help but share and spread the word about the car lover's lifestyle, because this is what it is. What else do we have? Well, you can take up arts and craft and knitting and all those things, but at the end of the day, for car people, it's a lifestyle, and I just want to share all of that lifestyle with all of you guys out there. So be sure to subscribe as well as share that with your friends that you know who are also car enthusiasts. So hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll catch you real soon. Bye-bye.